Kalshi is getting the old heave-ho in Nevada, and you can tell everyone that you heard it here first because we called that, 2 weeks ago? That's right. But more on that in a second. Welcome to Cryptocurrents, the weekly podcast of people working in crypto, blockchain, and tech, talking about everything you need to know in crypto, blockchain, and tech. Think of us like your homegrown Christmas tree with all your favorite ornaments. You could pick and choose which one you want, but we all know you have a favorite, and it's Katya. I'm your host, Vince, and today I'm joined by Kale from the Encrypt team.
This is my favorite ornament. It's a Charizard.
Awesome. As well as Katya from Mew.
Your favorite ornament, as you just learned.
Everyone's favorite ornament.
I am very ornamental, I must say.
That's true. So we'll talk about the Kalshi in a second, but there's a lot of stuff going on in crypto and blockchain. So let's talk about probably one of the biggest. And when we were getting ready for the show, this was kind of the first domino, which is Bank of America just announced that, they are going to start encouraging their clients to at least include 4% exposure to crypto. And this is just fascinating because since this went out yesterday, we're recording this on December 3rd, we've seen all of a sudden Vanguard is like going to allow investing and Schwab is going to allow investing in crypto. So it seems like all of the institutions were like, let's give everyone what they want for Christmas, and that's crypto. But I think this is like fascinating because I know crypto companies that firsthand got debanked way back in 2018 by Bank of America. And it just shows you eventually they learn to love you. But talk to me about Bank of America and all these institutions coming on board all of a sudden. Kale, kick us off.
I'm curious how much of an immediate impact it's going to make because, at this point, crypto's more than 15 years old. So I feel like the people who wanted to invest in crypto or who want to at this point have found a way. So short term, I feel like this is probably a nothing burger, but long term, I'm super stoked about it because I feel like this is the beginning of big institutions that boomers listen to, like the JP Morgans and all the Wall Street people that are going to start telling their clients yeah, put your money here. And then eventually, when everything moves on chain, like stocks and all that, it's going to be put 30% of your things in crypto, put 40, the numbers will change and there's going to be more people pushing it, for lack of better words. So yeah, long term, I like it. Short term, I'm curious how impactful it'll be.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see any sort of impact in the short term just because that would require rebalancing of portfolios. And I doubt that we're going to see that.
That seems like a lot of work,
yeah. A lot of work, but also we've kind of missed the window to tax loss harvest or kind of rebalance before the end of the year. So maybe in January. But at the same time, God, that just sounds like a lot of work. But that's me. Katya?
Well, I just wanted to say, I think you said at least 4%. I think it's at they're recommending 1 to 4%. And so they're considering 4% as the appropriate for the higher risk
4%
tolerance.
is super degenerate.
Yes, the super, 1% if you're and then 4% if you're super into it. So they are being kind of cautious, I guess, still. But yeah, I think it's it's a signal. I don't think it's anything that will change the portfolios right now or even in the next year. But it's a signal of serious institutions, banks, thinking that this is safe enough to be part of the portfolios. Even though it's, a high risk recommendation, I know that they have a bunch of risk evaluations for these things, but it is a recommendation. I mean, I guess that's cool. I mean, this is the thing that we talked about a while back when they said that they might allow crypto in retirement funds and retirement accounts and all of that stuff. Where it gets dodgy is if someone can make those decisions on your behalf and you don't even know that cryptos, so that's kind of scary. I think that's a thing that could make a big impact on the financial landscape generally and on crypto's reputation particularly because, we don't want everybody to blame crypto. On the other hand, no, people didn't stop buying houses after 2008. So,
I do also think it's interesting how this is kind of, we're seeing more and more of a repositioning of crypto as like an investment vehicle. And this definitely feels in that vein, which I think is kind of interesting because I of course still think of it as tech and not necessarily as an investment vehicle. But this kind of approach makes me feel like it's being brought up there and be like, yes, it's the same as a stock, which could be good, but it could be bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely getting closer and closer to being treated like a stock.
Yeah. Except you can do so much cool stuff with it, at least with Ethereum. But I don't
Yeah.
know. You
I
know
mean, it
me, I'm in
makes
it for the blockchain.
yeah, true.
Yeah, I think I guess I disagree. I think there was always I think it's not so much a change over time as like there were always groups of people who always thought of crypto as an investment, it's just like an
Mhm.
extremely risky and like cutting edge kind of deal. And people who always thought of it as tech and still do. They're like, okay, this is a nice collateral that like we're doing all this finance stuff, but it's tech and it's still the main thing about it is going to be tech and blockchain is going to be the thing that survives. So I think there were people who always thought of it as just another type of stock. And finally
Mhm.
they're like, oh, well, we told you it was stock, and
Called it.
you called it, right? Meanwhile, we are like, oh, well, we called you. It was blockchain all along, So like we're all right now, all of us enjoying our triumph.
It feels so good to be right. But you know who maybe wasn't right? Vitalik. So he's been catching quite a bit of heat recently because of a tweet that he basically said, hey, you should build on Ethereum, which is kind of a change of tune, of the last number of years, where he's like, build on build on an L2. That's hard to say. And so he's been catching some flack for this. And yeah, what is your guys' takes on this?
So at first, I was confused because I saw the tweet and he literally just tweeted, "You can just build on the L1." And so the overwhelming consensus, like all the comments were like, "So what have we been doing for the past 4 years? Like you've been telling us to build out the L2s, level up the L2s, make the L2s good, do the stuff on the L2s." And then all of a sudden, he's just nonchalantly like, "Duh, guys, you can just build on the L1." Come to find out, though, after doing a little more research, this, I guess, was always the plan. And so what happened was in 2021, East was not ready yet. The L1 needed to be scaled more. And at this point in 2025, it is ready. The L1 can handle lots and lots of transactions.
Yeah.
And so basically what he's saying is like, don't forget about L1. He's not saying like, okay, we're all moving from L2 back to L1
Abandon
now.
the L2s, back to the
Yeah.
L1.
No, yeah, no. That's how like a lot of people took it. But what he's saying basically is like, we can build on both now. And whatever you're building should be like interoperable. It can't just be only on Base or only on ZK EVM or whatever. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. At first, I was like up in arms too because I was confused. But yeah, it makes sense after learning like where he's coming from. And of course it makes sense. It's literally Vitalik. He's like 10 steps ahead of everybody.
Yeah, but man, you'd think you would have someone in place that's like, yo, man, let's like maybe review your tweets before you send it out, because this did seem a little tone deaf, and I do think
100%.
Yeah, but then again, I guess in the last year of doing this podcast, we saw when they were hiring the social media person for the Ethereum Foundation, so maybe they just haven't even thought of that. But I agree. Obviously, ETH used to be so expensive, and it made sense to build on the L2s, and now it's like, cool. I would like to see more building on the L1 just to recapture some of that value that these L2s are just farming, based on the back of Ethereum.
Yeah, and a lot of the L2s don't even give their fees or revenue back to
Exactly.
Ethereum. So it's like, yeah, kind of a shit show.
Katya?
I mean, I'd like to push back to like, I don't even understand what the shock is. Like, I don't even understand what the controversy is because like Kia was saying, like you were saying, like partially what I'm about to say, that like you looked at it and then you read like what it was in reaction to, I don't know if Vitalik is always right. I don't read enough of his stuff to, and historically. But one thing you can be sure of is that like before, like as you say, somebody like review his tweets, that before he tweets, he read everything that was relevant to whatever it is he is tweeting about.
Mhm.
So it's like his tweets are never like knee jerk or emotional,
No.
like they're like, I don't think if he has any knee jerks or emotion, to be fair, but
Probably not.
so, but the thing is that like, and people who have these strong reactions to it are frankly uninformed.
Right.
And so, yeah, like it was like this thing, when Ethereum was going through the merge and, doing like, and people were like, well, why are the fees still high? And there was these all explanations like the fees were not the point. And there were so many upgrades and transitions that every time somebody had to come out and explain, we were not going after making Ethereum cheaper, and explain why, and explain that Ethereum has to stay more expensive to be more secure, because like you don't want it to be super cheap to do stupid shit on Ethereum. So that's why, like, so if anything, that is one question I have right now. Like, are we not protecting Ethereum anymore with the higher fees? Like, what is happening with that? Like, are we not concerned about that anymore? Because that was my understanding. But L2s were a helping hand always to give Ethereum room to breathe and room to progress, and kind of, because it's a very, I don't know, it's a big work in progress. It's like there are a lot of people working on it, famously so, like it has the biggest and most active developer community still, even despite Solana's and all, and Base and all of those things. So I think L2s gave Ethereum time and room to kind of like get where it's supposed to go. And this is still not the final stage, but it doesn't mean that L2s are useless. But if you think about it, like all the biggest and still most important protocols, they started on Ethereum because Ethereum, that was all there was. And then when you got Arbitrum and Polygon and BNB, all of those like side chains and L2s and Optimism, they all opened their divisions on each of those chains, and it was working because it made sense, they got to grow. But they didn't shut her down on Ethereum. They didn't say like, okay, we're done with this, like we're moving entirely to Optimism. It was just so they could get the volume that they needed, and they could take the pressure of the main chain. And all of them are positioned now to do whatever they want, like they can scale back to Ethereum and, whatever. And so, and right now with interoperability, like users may not even need to notice as much like where most of the action is happening. Most wallets support, if they support Ethereum, they support all the L2s and vice versa. So I think kind of like this kind of reaction, like what about L2s, is a maxi reaction, like whatever maxi you are, Base or Arbitrum or whatever. And it's like, what, like, we don't matter anymore? You do, but Ethereum was always the most important chain. And if you didn't understand that coming in, I'm sorry, you eventually will have to.
I remember in 2023 when people started building L3s and we were like, oh no, and there's going to be L4s and L5s.
I remember when someone pitched me, they were building an L0, and I'm like, I want to kill myself. I don't want to be in this conversation anymore.
Yeah, I remember Polkadot branded itself as an L0 at one point.
Did they?
At some point, yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
But no, I agree. I it is kind of like the knee-jerk reaction, but I do feel like I could have seen this knee-jerk reaction coming a mile away. Like any sort of media training, you'd be like, hold on, let me think this through a little bit. But yeah. But speaking of knee-jerk reactions, let's talk about Etherscan, which just suddenly threw up paywalls around their API, which we've seen a bunch of knee-jerk reactions about. Katya, kick us off on this.
Yeah, this is actually very strongly related to our previous topic of conversation about Ethereum and L2s and all that. So Etherscan, and I only learned this when I was reading about this news, actually services like 68 chains, I believe.
Correct.
It's crazy. Like I remember when it was just Ethereum, and then it kept adding every L2 roll up every EVM chain that of any significance. And the amount of data that they are processing is actually kind of crazy, because if you imagine that, like, none of us can imagine having just direct access to all of the transactions that Visa processes or MasterCard processes. It's just like unimaginable on many levels. But this is in a way what Etherscan does. And for wallets and exchanges and all those things to work, they need to have access to this data, right? And so it's becoming unsustainable for them to service so many chains. And the volume on those chains, so the reason they're gating not Ethereum, but these other chains is because, because they're cheaper. I guess they have more transactions. I actually don't know the numbers on this, but like because it's cheaper to transact on them, I'm imagining that similarly to how like Bitcoin has the fewest transactions because it's, compared to the other blockchains. And so so I think the reaction was bad because they didn't really build up to it. Like they didn't say in 2 months or 3 months we're going to start with this price and then
They're
we're
just
going to
like,
raise the price and
surprise.
whatever.
Yeah.
And they were just like, we're done. We can't. We are buckling to our knees. That's it. $49.99 or whatever it is. And it's not for individuals. Just to be clear, it's for APIs, which is like when a DApp or provider or somebody makes like thousands of calls a minute or whatever it is. And, so they're gating that individual users can still use it for free. And I think up to 3 calls a second are free, which is also like not, like if you're
To
running
us in the
some little
soft skills, we're like, that sounds like a lot already.
Yeah, no,
already,
definitely.
right? But like I guess to developers, it's like you can't do anything with that. But yeah, and so it's just for like BNB and what Avalanche. I forget the exact list of chains, but it's not Ethereum, So
Base too, I think.
yeah, and so, but I think it's a big, it's one of those like quieter signs of growth because it's infrastructure. It's an infrastructure thing, which is not really an interesting thing to most people, unless like you lost your transaction and you're looking for it every once in a while. You're like, oh, Etherscan, I'm gonna go.
So part of me wonders if this is them changing their business model. Just because I remember years ago at a party talking to someone and they're like, yeah, so Etherscan, in order to spin up a base scan or BNB scan, charges $1 million a year. And I don't know if that's true, so don't quote me on that. But that is also something that was not necessarily scalable, right? It doesn't scale with the chain going bananas. And it also was like they were basically like 10 chains deep on things they were spinning up these for. And they literally couldn't meet demand. And I think that's why we've seen a lot of things like the block scouts of the world or the Etherscan competitors come up and start charging like per transaction batch. So I wonder if this is just them being like, ooh, we're losing ground. Let's fight back.
Well, yeah, because if they were charging $1 million, let's say this is true. If they were charging, who were they charging? The chain?
Yes, like the
Well,
foundation or whatever.
yeah, the foundation, whatever. So that's a one-time thing that ran out, and so, but the chain keeps growing and you keep getting new dApps and new projects on that same chain.
Yeah.
So it's not like the chain got a subscription where they're going to give them $1 million every even 10 years or
Well,
whatever.
no, it was a year. It was a year.
A year per year. Well, yeah, I don't know. Then maybe
Still,
it's
like
not
that,
true.
to
Yeah.
your point, like some of these like transactions probably well exceed that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
mean,
Like
there's no way, like if they sign a subscription type contract with a chain, they don't know how it's going to go, like whether the chain is going to take off or not. And I'm sure that sometimes they continue supporting a chain even when it's not, currently experiencing the kind of volume that justifies that kind of price. But I think it's you know how we all talk about, and we are all like so exhausted by this like internet metaphor, but still like we all talk about like the HTTP and TCP/IP and all of those protocols that sustain the internet, etc. I think this is one of those that moment where we all always said infrastructure matters, and it matters so much to build infrastructure, and wallets are infrastructure, arguably you could say, because they are not, they're putting making this whole thing possible as opposed to being like a money maker, right? Specifically, or a specific service. And yeah, like we've all said, it's really important, but this is like a sign where it's like, yeah, it can break. And if it breaks, everything else breaks. Hey. So, I mean, hard to blame them for wanting to charge for things. I guess it's just like, it's surprising that it was a surprise to them.
Yeah.
Or if it wasn't a surprise to them that they decided to do it so rashly. That's
Yeah.
what's surprising, not the thing itself.
Kale, what are your thoughts?
I mean, in general, this makes sense to me. I didn't even think about like them changing the business model, but that probably it's something along those lines, because like you said, if they like do base for $1 million a year and then they're getting all these API requests that like the $1 million a year isn't paying for it,
Yeah.
then yes, this makes a lot of sense. Of course, this is just like what happens when companies are competing against each other. Companies need to make revenue to survive. And yeah, I mean, overall, it's chill. Kind of a nothing burger to me. I like that it's like for the API specifically and not the user. That I love, because like anytime they want to charge the user, I'm like not a
Although I
fan.
seem to recall Katya complaining the other day about Etherscan all of a sudden requiring you to log in, which also feels like a change to their business model as well. Just wait for
Yeah,
your
also
Etherscan
not
Plus account.
Yeah, not for anything at all. Like you can still look up an address or a transaction without it, but I think it limits you to a certain. Also, like there's some kind of
Yeah, like
limitation
one
without it.
page or whatever, something.
One page per
Something,
day
yeah.
or something dumb.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can't see, or like once you get onto the list of like you can only see the first 100 or something. So like, yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, it's becoming a real Google.
It's
I mean,
becoming
that's
a
what it
real
is.
Google.
It's a Google for blockchain. So
Yeah, no,
It's
that's
becoming a
true.
real Google. I'm gonna put that on a throw pillow.
You beat me to my line. Thanks, Kale.
It's a good one.
So, we've talked a lot about like Twitter drama, and there's one more I want to cover, but I want to zoom out. So like SheFi, which is a like blockchain female-oriented advocacy group, is currently coming under a bunch of like heat for, not being worth it, just kind of being like a little members only club that you pay to be a member of and doesn't actually offer any value. I kind of want to zoom out and talk about groups in crypto and just pose to you guys, do these kind of advocacy groups work at spurring adoption? Or is this just kind of like an excuse to hang out? And, this could be like NFT groups. This can be like, women in crypto. Like Katya, I'd love to hear your insight on that. But yeah, start us off, one of you.
I mean, I am so off anti-degen and so offline in terms of like influencers and groups, and I just work here. That's my throw pillow. I just work here. Like I show up and try to understand what's going on, and as long as I've been in this space, I haven't been influenced to buy anything or to adopt anything by anyone really. To this day, like I just hold the blue chip cryptos and that's it, which I don't know if that characterizes me well or not, because maybe like working here I should be trying more stuff and kind of like, but that's why we have Kale. So, but I am not the target kind of audience of these kinds of things, because I am very like anti herd, even if it's a small herd, anti any herd. I am kind of like the
100% disagree,
the
dude.
scary witch lady in her
No, they
house.
want you. They need the scary witch ladies. They need the scary witch ladies for sure. Yeah, no, so like for people who are like unfamiliar, basically what SheFi is, it's like literally women paying $800, I think, a year to be a part of SheFi, which is the club. The club is called SheFi. And yeah, they like market themselves across like crypto Twitter and socials and whatnot. And basically like the point, as far as I understand, like the point of the SheFi group is like they're all coming together to like help each other come up in the space, And yeah, I mean, to answer your question, Vince, like, do these types of groups even work, or is it just like friends hanging out? There's definitely elements of both, I think, because yeah, I mean, some of these crypto groups that get together like don't really achieve anything. It's literally just dudes in a Telegram channel like doing trading or whatever, being friends. But like some of them make an impact. But SheFi specifically, yeah, I don't know. It feels like just a gender focused thing. Like making it gender focused makes it feel weird to me. You know, like what if you and I were like, we're starting HeFi for the boys, like
God.
no girls allowed. You know, it would be a totally different vibe.
It's already
and
a sausage club. We don't need another one.
No, true, exactly. And like that's what I get where they're coming from. It's like we're in a male dominated space, and like here, if you want to like be around other females, come over here.
It's one of those things that I'm totally on board in concept, and it's just like I wonder how well it works in practice for the people that are part of it, and then also for the broader like onboarding people into crypto, right? Because that's at the end of the day, that's what all of them want to do. You know,
I mean, I have a lot to say about women in crypto groups specifically, not, you know, education in crypto is good, no question. Women supporting women is good, no question. In any industry, right? Kind of like having belonging to a community and wanting to show you belonging to a community can be good depending on the community, but like can be really good, right? And I think the $800 here was not just for membership per se, but for a badge, for like an NFT essentially that proves your membership or something like that. And that's not new either. You know, this kind of like on-chain proof of belonging to something like the Rave tickets or I subscribe to Bankless, you know, and I have some badges from my every year, like that I was subscribed to Bankless, things like that. And so this on-chain reputation thing comes into play, where like somebody can look at your address that you publicly share and see what you've been doing in the space. And I guess that works. I guess that's fine. My gripe with women in crypto groups specifically, and I guess this could relate to a lot of groups, that in my experience, it's been hard for these groups to find the right focus and the right kind of like impact, I guess, in the space. When I would early on, before Mew, when I was going to conferences and writing about conferences for a publication, I would go to Women in Crypto, you know, with tracks. They would have a track, right? And then some of these conferences, they would have a Women in Crypto track that's separate from everything else, that like set up like the few days before the conference. So like nobody is there yet, like the main conference people are not, just to say, oh, we have these women, we are highlighting women, we are doing, you know, and then they have panels and it's all women. And it's like, okay, that's great. But if you have panels that are all women and you have all women in the audience, we know, like we already know that like that there are great and intelligent women in the space and they're doing great things. Like we know each other, we know about this. Like this is not what we like, this is not who needs to get educated about this, right? Like you want VCs coming, you know, whatever, like whatever the goal is. And then from honestly every woman I've met in the space that I've really respected and I thought was doing, you know, that wasn't just like that was building something, right? She wanted to be on panels with other builders, regardless whether they were men or women or monkeys, you know, like if they were building something interesting in the space, that's where she wanted to be and that's where she wanted to speak. She didn't want to be on a panel of women in crypto. She wanted to be on a panel of people who were using the same blockchain language that she was using, you know? And so I think that's the challenge, that you want to build community and then community wants to display itself somehow on chain and have these badges and whatever. But on the other hand, it's like,
is that an actual advocacy? And I would say no.
Is it? Yeah. Like if I don't have a SheFi badge and I will never buy one, and I was never even part of SheFi, does that mean I am not a woman in crypto? Does that mean I am not somebody who deserves to be, you know, like what does it really mean? So I think it's good to have these things, but I think it's an error to kind of like
make it a social thing.
Yeah, make it a social thing and make it a requirement to entry to anything.
Yeah,
you know,
and
kind of like
for me, I think one of the biggest problems I see in crypto across the board is community. And it's part of a meme at this point of like, oh, I'm in it for the culture, I'm in it for the community. And that's how things don't get done. You know, things built by committee don't work. like just hanging out and being like, yeah, we like crypto doesn't necessarily onboard people. Things that, I like better are like Girls Who Code, which is a great nonprofit that my wife and I donate to every year. Things that are actually like encouraging and like doing something rather than just be like, yeah, we're a club, we're going to have drinks and like help each other and network. Like, God, if I ever get pitched about networking, it will never be too soon for me to just leap off a cliff.
Yeah, and you have to, pay for it, because I got emails or offers or at conferences, they would pitch you, like seeing you as a woman at a crypto conference, they would pitch you these networking clubs, for lack of a better word, that of course you had to pay to get into, and then you would get to network with like high profile women or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's like, that's not what we are trying to
Yeah,
get to.
it's adjacent. And, for people that grew up in the States would remember the who's who of like high school students, which was like this
Yeah, the
scammy,
books that
this
they would send, yeah.
book where, I don't know, Kale, your face tells me you don't know what this is.
No.
But they
He's
would
too
mail
young, I
this,
think.
they would mail these pamphlets to your home. And it's like, your student has been nominated to be in the who's who among high school students in the United States. For the low cost of $250, we'll include their name and send you a book. And like
Yeah.
What a
parents would
scam.
just fork over money because they're like, then you can put that on a college application or a job application, and it's just insane. I don't
I
know.
mean, was it effective? Like, did colleges and jobs care?
No.
Okay.
It's not even
That's what I thought.
real. It's
No.
like the star naming stuff. Like, they don't actually name the star after you. They just take your $100 and say, here's your certificate, idiot.
That makes sense.
No, yeah. I mean, it's like, if, because my daughter was going through this, yes, she neared the end of high school, and it's like there's the National Honor Society, which I think is a real thing. And then there are like some other societies which are like less real. And I would ask her, like, are you applying for this, or are you, and she's like, no. So basically, like, if they just want your name and address, okay, maybe. If they wanted any kind of payment for anything, that's a no, because like then it's a scam. If you need
Yeah.
to pay to be in a list somewhere,
No. It's a hard pass at that point. And you know what else is a hard pass? Is Kalshi in Nevada. So I'm so excited to talk about how they just got kicked out of Nevada because I feel so vindicated because I called it. But talk to me about how right I was, you guys. Kale, kick us off.
Dude, honestly, this was the topic from this week that I'm least prepared. Just because, like, I've never used prediction markets, and like I don't ever plan on using them, man, to be honest.
Yeah.
But like, reading the article about it, I did think it was hilarious that the crypto attorney, I think he's from New York, defending Kalshi, he said, and I quote, "Prediction markets aren't gambling because they're not structured to be." Which I was like, okay, like that's like the weakest argument. It's like,
Yeah.
just because something's not structured to be something doesn't mean it's not that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I thought that was hilarious that the New York attorney, like, that's his point, his argument.
And I mean, and I just linked you guys today. Kalshi is teaming up with CNN. Like, this whole perception of their positioning of trying to be, or was it Polymarket? Whatever. One of these prediction markets being like teaming up with CNN, being like, this is how you get the pulse of society. And it's
no, I think it was
crazy.
Kalshi.
It was
It
And
was
Kalshi.
then I mentioned, and then I remembered how I was saying in a previous podcast that like the Wall Street Journal wrote about Polymarket's predictions for the end of the government shutdown, like actually quoting it and being like, oh, look at it's crazy. But I think the gist of it, Kale, was that basically they had to decide whether, I think they ruled specifically on sports predictions for now, in this case, like specifically sports markets specifically in Nevada. And the gist of it was basically, are they like crypto swaps? Are they token transactions? Are they like whatever? Or are they gambling?
Yeah.
And I think in the end they said, obviously, to anyone is gambling.
Is gambling with an extra step.
Yeah. So yeah, I think whoever was like this lawyer, or like this lawyer was more vague, but I think whoever was trying to argue against it and defend it, like I think Kalshi was like, we are under the jurisdiction of CFTC and whatever, like we are not under gambling jurisdiction. And, understandably, like I'm on the side of the judge here. They were like, look at the thing. I know
Look at
it
the
when I
thing.
see it. It is the gambling.
It is curious that this happened in Nevada, like the capital of gambling.
I mean,
'cause
that's
where Las Vegas is
precisely
at.
the first thing that would fall, right? Because like they used to be the capital of gambling, and now you can gamble kind of everywhere. And so it is in every, like, they are fighting for their lives right now.
Yeah, that makes
You know,
sense.
we've seen Vegas getting absolutely hammered by a downtick in tourism, and so this is them fighting for their lives.
I was
Because at the
thinking
same
of it
time,
from the opposite sense, like Las Vegas would be the last bastion,
oh,
like
no,
fighting for
no,
it. But it makes sense, yeah, that they would be the
because they're
first
missing
to
out
get
on all
hit.
that revenue.
No, yeah, because it's
Yeah.
taking their bread away from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's
If
crazy
you don't
because
have to go there,
if
you
you've
know?
ever been to a if you've never been to a sports book, I highly recommend going next time you're
Oh,
in
gosh.
Vegas. It is so much fun. Like, there's food, you can smoke, you can watch football, you can bet, or you don't even have to bet. You can just sit there and be like, this is great.
Yeah, I'm so
Like,
down. I've never
it's a
been.
vibe.
I need to go with just like $50. Just be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is my limit."
For
Like just to
sure.
have fun, because I've heard so many stories like that like, yeah, Vegas is like actually fun when you're not losing money,
Yeah, Vegas
when you're
is
not like
hella
addicted.
fun. And when you're like not on the strip, like get off the strip, like fun to visit, but not the place where you want to hang out. But and now I'm super amped to like watch and see like what other states, what other cities like start to go after this, right? Atlantic City, I bet we see Missouri, Mississippi, some of these places that do rely on a lot of gambling revenue. And then when we start to see, Monaco, then it'll be really interesting. But I do think this is the first chip to fall, and I love it when I'm right.
Everyone loves being right.
But you know who really loves being right? It's you, dear listener, because you're right to listen to us talk every week, and we appreciate you being here. So thank you, dear listener, because that's the end of our episode. We hope you found something useful in here. We found you being here very useful for us. We'll see you in the next week. Nope, we'll see you in the episode next week, is what I meant to say. Make sure you leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.